Get home from school, turn on my TV. Who are these friends staring right back at me? Now that we're old.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Jessica, and this is 90s Babies Nostalgia, where two 90s babies are out here having some fun.
Just to be clear, we are not sponsored by nor affiliated with anything that we are talking about in this podcast, unless otherwise disclosed, which we wouldn't mind. But for now, we're not. We just really like talking about TV, and today the TV that we are talking about is Young Royals Season 3! We're going to be covering episodes 1 through 3, the first 3 episodes. If you don't know, Young Royals, huge Netflix teenage serial that we're obsessed with. We've been covering all month, and the final season just dropped in the last week, except for the finale. So, well, actually, by the time this comes out,
the finale will come out.
So if you haven't seen the new episodes, go back, watch them, because we are going to be spoiling literally everything. It's what we do.
Yep. We are not a spoiler-free zone. We are an only spoilers zone. So if that is not for you, you haven't watched it, go watch it, then come back.
We've also covered seasons 1 and 2 in previous episodes, so you can go find those elsewhere as well. Now, before we get into it, Jessica, what have you been enjoying lately?
I have been listening to a LA-based band called Moon Tower. They just opened for a band that I saw a couple weeks ago, and it was the best opener that I have seen in years. The moment they announce another LA tour, I will go see them in a heartbeat. But I was going to call them indie pop, but I looked up what they call themselves. So before anyone says I make up genres, all genres are made up. But this is how they describe themselves. They describe themselves as a French house-inspired electropop band. Whatever that means. I think indie pop is a great way to generalize it.
Electropop is, I would classify electropop as different to indie pop.
Yeah, I would agree. But the lead singer is pansexual, non-binary, very, very active in like the gun control movement. Is very vocal on stage about these things, which is amazing. And their live show was just like, it blew me away. So if you love yourself some electro pop, some indie pop, highly recommend. They only have one album. My current favorite song is State of Mind, but the whole album is great. So go give them a listen. Moon Tower.
I like that name.
I know, it's very cute. And on stage, they had like little light up, little like moonlights is almost how they looked, in the shape of an M. It was very cute.
Aww.
What have you been listening to, enjoying, watching?
I am going to go off script again from not a show or listening to. I'm going to be like a little serious for a second.
Okay.
I've been enjoying getting help for my mental health.
This is very fitting with what we're chatting about as well. So
it is. And Jess, you know, I've never been someone to shy away from talking about mental health. My family has their fair share of difficulties there. So to me, it's always just been something that I can speak about easily. And sometimes it's a joke of mine. Like, I make a joke out of it. I don't take myself too seriously. But sometimes that can stop me from seeing when there are real issues. So I've been in therapy before. I've been on medication for my depression and anxiety. But I recently, as you know, have been getting help for ADHD, which has been like an absolute game changer, getting on a decent medication. Like, I went from being really, really unwell and telling everyone that I am on the verge of a mental breakdown just 2 weeks ago, to being like productive and able to do most things just from being mostly correctly medicated. So
that was me being excited for you. I'm very, very, very happy that it worked out this way, because I know when you were not doing so hot, we we're like, well, maybe the meds will help, but we weren't sure. So I'm glad that they are.
Yeah. And this is just a reminder, everyone. If you're struggling with something, you're probably not struggling alone. There's probably resources out there for you. And even if you've gotten help before, that doesn't mean you're all fixed and better. I needed to go back and get more help and more medicine. And I'm glad that I did. So
Yeah.
and some characters in this show could sure use to do the same.
Yes.
Yeah. So getting into that then,
Yeah.
transitioning, season 3, we've got a few new cast members, surprisingly. We have I'm sorry, you're gonna have to read this out.
Okay. Not new, but we have Hertig Ludwig,
Mhm.
who's played by Magnus Rusman, who is the Duke and also Wilhelm's dad. Not new, was in season 1 and 2, but definitely is a little bit more at the forefront this season. So I thought it was important to call him out because I don't think we have before. Also to note, he plays Edvin's dad on a Swedish show that they're both on. That is called Gus Mamum. I don't know.
I read that and was like, gas my man. Like, that's what I was doing in my head earlier.
Yeah, well, it's also the A with the little O on top, but I couldn't get the special character in the document, so there we go. Then we have Farima, who is played by Maral Nasiri, who's like Villy's advisor / assistant, I would say.
Yeah. I'd say if you've seen The Crown, she feels like the queen's sort of, I don't even remember what they're called, the like attaché or something, the like they're like their right-hand person for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel weird about her because she came out of nowhere and they seem very familiar already. But I don't know if she's just new or like she's been in the palace. Who knows? I do know neither of us got her name right while taking notes.
Mm-hmm.
Bear with
Correct.
us.
And then we have Vanessa Hamilton, who's played by Marie Robertson. Also, just so you know, all of these people are very, very like well-known Swedish actors. I just don't recognize the shows because I don't watch Swedish television, but they all have a ton of acting credits. These aren't like brand new actors like a lot of our other cast is, but she is playing the interim president at Hillerska.
Yeah, you heard that right. And with that note, getting into episode 1.
Episode 1.
Oh, we can only do that for so much longer.
I know, but then that means it's going to be over, and that's sadder, I feel.
So, Simon and Linda arrive at the palace. Yep, we're getting right into it because they have like a hearing with the royal family and August legal representative because of that sex tape. I almost said juicy sex tape and that felt really wrong. Because of the sex tape that was leaked by August that Sara reported at the end of season 2. And we get our first glimpse that the queen's not doing too well. Ludwig's kind of asking if she took her meds and saying this won't take too long. And then they go through this deal. They're going to settle. But Linda, Simon's mom, doesn't want to settle because she doesn't want to teach her kids that they can just get away with anything. However, then they go off to speak to Jan Olaf and like cool down a bit. And Simon's like, I don't mind settling. Like, it'll make it all go away. And selling August's manor, which is what he'd have to do to pay off the settlement, would be the worst case scenario for August, like the worst punishment he could have.
Jan Olaf is kind of like also taking the deal is what is best for all of you. Like if this actually goes to trial, they're going to dig up as much dirt on you and your family as they possibly can. And like that is worst case scenario. So you really should take this deal. Then Simone needs to cool off. So he kind of walks out of the room before they get started again, where Wille sees them and they both kind of like run away into a room and start making out and wrestling in bed. And then they get a knock on the door that the meeting needs to resume.
I can't with them, but well, I'm sorry. We have to get through the summary first. So they go back to the meeting and it's proposed that they get through this agreement paragraph by paragraph, make any changes necessary in real time. And again, Linda's trying to say, like, we're done here, we're taking you to court. But August's stepdad lawyer is like, just a reminder, this settlement is very generous, and it includes the fact that we don't press any charges or bring to light the fact that your son sold his father's medication to minors. It also doesn't include the fact that the crown prince held a gun to my stepchild's throat and threatened him. And everyone drops face, and Linda looks at Simon real mad. And then we learn that they did, in fact, sign the settlement, which also included that August has to be assured that he will be next in line after Wille.
After the settlement is signed, the queen's sitting down with August and Wille, and she's like, no more scandals, like no more of this. And they agree, but Wille's kind of like, all right, but I don't want anything to have to do with August. And this is kind of when we see the queen start to have like I wrote a panic attack, but it could be a breakdown. Like, she starts to have a panic attack. She can't breathe. She's crying and she's screaming out Eric's name.
Then we go to Hillerska. We're back. And all of the girls at breakfast are worried about Felice, who's looking like a ghost of herself. She's just on her phone. She's texting Wille, and he is coming back to school. But the other girls are talking amongst themselves about how, you know, they understand she was close with Sara, but she needs to get over this friendship breakup. They need to have an intervention.
She looks so sad, guys. So sad. On the way to school, Farima is walking Wille through like what his first official task as crown prince is going to be. And that's going to be on his 17th birthday. He's going to launch a charity. She's like, here's a folder with all these options of what the charity could be. Review them. Also, for summer, you're fully booked. You're going to Crown Prince School to learn everything that you haven't learned yet. And then she's like, just so you know, our biggest concern with all of this is Simon and his ability to lay low during all of this. Wille's like, I'll talk to him. Don't worry about it.
The palace isn't the only group worried about Simon, because we then see him at home and his mom puts a little drug test pee cup in front of him and says, not in my house. And also tells him that he is grounded for the rest of the semester, which, of course, he takes very well. Sara comes out and asks how everything went at the palace, and Simon just yells at her about how everything is her fault. Why'd she have to report August? Blah, 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 blah. This is a motif.
Mm-hmm. Wille arrives at school and sees Simone, and boy, do they just start immediately kissing in front of everyone. And then Simone's like, oh no, it's making me uncomfortable with all these eyes on us. And it's like, well, maybe you could have found somewhere more private. Like, hello. And Wille's like, let's ignore it. This is kind of what we wanted anyway. And then he does mention to Simone's like, we should keep a low profile, which making out in front of everyone is definitely keeping a low profile.
Simon walks from school to the bus station, and he's being harassed by journalists who now are staked out outside of the school gates at all times. Those gates should be further away from the school, if you ask me. And the journalists say that his ex, Marcus, has made these statements about his relationship. So he goes home and reads what they are on an article with Ayub and Rosh there. And he's like upset about the statements. Really, it's just that Marcus says he doesn't know about that relationship, that it's like not, seems unstable, seems a bit toxic, whatever. But mostly he's upset that Marcus went to the press or spoke to him, and that Wille didn't give him a warning before telling everyone at the Jubilee that they were together, because he didn't have any time to mentally prepare himself or his family. And Rosh makes this funny comment about how, like, well, Wille can be quite impulsive at times, huh? And maybe he should talk to him. And Simon's like, no, I can handle it, which is always someone's famous last words. Wille tries to call Simon, and it just goes straight to voicemail. So he texts him, and he's just telling him ignore the comments, because, of course, the comments have started to come in.
Then we see Sara show up at Mickey's house, and she asks to spend the night, but she's like, I don't want to talk about anything that's going on. This is going to be a short-term arrangement. Just let me stay here. And he agrees. Allegations about the school have now been published, including talk, and this is all coming out of like Wille's speech / all these journalists being around. So there's talk of like there's initiations that the school has been holding that involve like masks and drinking spit, and that like someone saw a group of students being stripped down to their underwear and being forced to watch a gay porno.
And ridiculed if they got a boner.
Yeah. The articles are also saying like the person who spoke up about this was inspired by Wille's speech when he spoke about outdated traditions.
The girls are in Felice's room and are trying to cheer her up with this intervention that's really not that much of an intervention. They just tell her that she needs something to look forward to, so they're all going to New York after semester.
Mhm.
Great. Meanwhile, bam! Shit's hit the fan at Hillerska because all classes are canceled. The students are brought into the assembly room. Well, I'm sure it has a fancier name, but I don't
It's an
know it.
assembly hall.
Yeah, and are introduced to the interim principal, Vanessa Hamilton, who announces that their old headmaster is currently under review while the school faces these allegations and investigates them. They now have a strict curfew of 7 o'clock. No cell phones are allowed except for 1 hour every day. There will be no more extracurriculars, no alcohol, and no nicotine consumption, even if you are of age.
Mhm.
Because if there are any more scandals, Hillerska is at risk of being shut down.
Yep.
That's it. That's this episode. I literally wrote the note right there of like, okay, so it's at risk, but like, do I care?
Yeah. Which just kind of becomes a topic that they all kind of
Mhm.
talk about for the rest of the season. There's like a good amount of them that are freaking out about the possibility of having to switch to another school. And then there's a few of them that are like, would this really be the worst thing ever if it got shut down?
So getting into our notes for this first episode, straight off the bat, okay, we mentioned in season 1 notes that the music in Young Royals goes a little hard. Like it's these like uptight prep school Swedish kids with this like, I don't know, grunge pop type music.
Yeah.
I feel like that's an appropriate
Yeah.
description of most of it, often in English, a little aggressively. And I felt like we were missing that a little bit in season 2. I don't know if you felt the same. You're nodding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt like season 2 was more like classical, a little more tamed. And
It was. They had like a classical artist come in and do mostly instrumentals, like custom instrumentals for the show for majority of the music of season 2. And now in season 3, we're back to the original format of music from season 1, which is they're taking already produced music.
I love that you know that.
Mm-hmm.
You've really been deep diving lately, huh?
Yeah, I have
You're
a
really
problem.
going through it this week. And I'm sure that also had to do with licensing fees and whatnot. But they came back with that licensed aggressive pop music. And also everyone seems a little bit cooler. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
yeah, we got our swag back and I'm happy.
Yeah. Everyone's like cooler and hotter.
Literally. Like
Yeah.
the looks are serving.
Yeah. The timeline of this show, it occurs over one school year. One school year. That's it. But it's taking 3 whole seasons, which makes no sense to me at all. But another thing that frustrated me is scenes we get in this first episode. It is full on snowing, but we're also supposed to believe that summer break is right around the corner. But it's like blizzarding.
I do have a comment for this. Later in episode 3, they will be celebrating a holiday that happens on the final day of April. And when I lived in Oslo, it did snow randomly. Like there would be sunshine some days in March and April. And then I had a day where it snowed in April or May.
Okay.
So it's not unheard of. And plus
Fair.
they're not quite into, I think summer starts a bit early for them too, because like I said, April 30th is the holiday in the 3rd episode.
Yeah.
Also in this, the fact that it's only been a few months, Wille is aged 3 years and Simon's ageless.
Yeah.
Just he looks the same.
Mm-hmm.
And Wille's like gone through all of the possible haircuts. He's gotten broader. He's like
Grown like at least 5 inches. I'm not even exaggerating. Literally.
yeah, he's pulling a Kit Connor, and I'm okay with it because
Yeah.
this is also his best hair ever. This is peak Wille hair. Like every time I look at him on screen, I'm like, that man is stunning. Like I love that haircut.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Also, in the timeline note, Simon's going through all of this. He just settled in a royal court, and he's known Wille for like 6 months max. 6 months max.
Yeah, probably closer to what you wrote, which is 3 months. I feel like 6 months is being generous.
It is.
Like, would you?
No.
Yeah.
Well, probably not.
Yeah. During the lawyer scene, we get this thing where he's like, the lawyer's kind of going back and pushing back on Linda. And it's like, well, could you really say that the video wasn't innocent? It's just two guys kissing. And I have to say, that video was not innocent, and it was not taken and posted with innocent intent. And so that was bullshit and pissed me off.
Yeah, he's a lawyer being a lawyer. And I kind of understood his point of like, you only see them kissing on each other. You don't see anything else happen. You don't see clapping cheeks or anything like that.
You do not. It's also mentioned that the settlement is 1.2 million kroner. My assumption is each based on the way it was said, but it was never really clarified. I had to look that up because I'm like, dang, that sounds like a lot. But also, like, this is a shitty situation, and like August is rich. So, like, I mean, he's rich, but not rich, but he has a lot in assets. So I'm like, I guess it doesn't seem that crazy. It's only 116,000 US dollars.
I looked it up immediately as well.
That does not feel like enough for what they had to go through.
No, it also just doesn't feel accurate for an aristocratic mansion full of family heirlooms.
Yeah, like to have to sell a whole estate.
He'd have plenty left over if that's all he's paying.
I would hope so. Unless the cost of property there is really not that high. But yeah, it seems crazy.
Yeah, I was surprised when I did the conversion as well. That's not enough.
No, not enough.
For his innocence?
Not enough at all. And to guarantee him next in line to the throne. There's this moment we mentioned where Simone is like sneaking out of the room to get some fresh air, and then Wille pulls him aside so they can go make out. And you see Simone kind of battle with like, do I go with Wille, but my mom is alone with Jan Olaf, and like my poor mom, she's so out of place. And I just thought that was a very like, it was a great little moment to show his character, because he is so family driven and so close to his family. But also like, Simone, go sneak off with your hot boyfriend. Like, go make out with him. You guys are going through something stressful. Don't worry about your mom. She's grown. She's got this.
We had opposite thoughts. I'm not mad that they walked off, but I was like, guys, we're in the middle of court proceedings, and you went to go make out in bed. And it's a hot make out in his bed.
Yes.
Have some self-control.
Sure. There was no self-control. Honestly, so far, episodes 1 through 3, no self-control.
Absolutely none. But that's the benefit of them coming out, right? Is they don't have to hide it anymore.
Also, this is all, I have a lot of notes on this scene. All this scene where they're sneaking away, they have this cute little moment where Wille's like, oh, you being here isn't how I imagined, which like, no shit. Why would you ever imagine it was for your sex tape being leaked? Like, I would hope that that's not how you imagined it. And then when they're making out, Simone's like, well, how did you imagine it? Or does this live up to how you imagined it? And Wille's like, no, it's better. It's very cute. But as they're starting to make out, they like lean against a window, and there's this like lacy curtain, and Simone grabs the curtain and like pulls it up to Wille's face, and the curtain like grazes his cheek before they go in to kiss. And like, this show is so extra. I had to rewind that scene because I was like, we included this in our 45 minutes. That's all we get per an episode. And we included a curtain grazing the face scene.
No one has ever said that the show doesn't love its slow, dramatic moments. In fact, we are on record saying that in our previous episodes. They love their slow, dramatic moments, and they needed to draw it out. And they said, what's more sensual than a piece of fabric?
Seriously.
I didn't mind it. I also wasn't offended by it. Thank you.
It was just weird. I was like, imagine making out with someone and they pull a curtain up to your face. Would you find that hot?
I wouldn't be put off, I don't think.
Okay.
If it was a blackout, maybe.
Okay, fair. Simone doesn't have to sign an NDA. I don't need to exaggerate on that, but that's confusing to me.
But do they say that he doesn't have to?
They don't say that he doesn't, but if he had to sign an NDA, for sure it would include him not posting anything with Wille or commenting on social media about anything going on with them. Like, all of that would be included. So I guess I'm
Oh.
assuming that he doesn't sign one.
I assumed that he probably signed an NDA about just the fact that August released the sex tape.
Oh, maybe about that, but you think it would include like everything being in a relationship with someone who's royal.
I actually hadn't thought about that. I thought there was a good callback in the court scene where, before the Queen's health issue, we see things between August and Wille get tense when August says he wants to be assured he will be the heir after Wille, and that Wille is like, well, you'll never get there. And he's like, well, you're going to mess it up anyway, so I'm not worried about it. And he says he says that Wille was violent before August messed up his life, and that he has his own sordid past, basically, which is a good reminder that at the very, very start of the show, he was sent to Hillerska because he was getting in fights at clubs and being a rowdy little party boy, which I honestly completely forgot.
Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't forget that, but I do think it was a good like callback as well.
That was a part of his personality that I forgot, because he's just been like a dramatic homosexual for the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, it's true.
I did think it was really interesting that in the car ride back to Hillerska, Farima's plan for Wille, she says that she's actually really excited about him and Simon, and that they are more tolerant than the rest of the crown has been, and together they can raise a new generation of monarchists, which is misguided, because Simon is anything but a monarchist. However, kind of slay.
Yeah, it really shows you how strategic someone in that position has to be, which is why when we were describing her, me saying assistant didn't feel like enough, because it's really like her job is to like map out where he's going in the future and how he's going to be viewed to the public. And it's very, very clever to be like, we can use you being so open and being gay to kind of bring up the monarchy and being royal in a light that can like speak to younger people better.
I looked up what it's called. It's a private secretary. I don't know if that's her official title, but that's what it's called in the British Royal Empire. Like, each person in the royal family has their own private secretary for life, who also handles their PR in addition to their agendas and
so
everything.
Much.
Yeah. It's like your job as an EA on steroids.
Yeah. They better make a lot of money.
At the very least, they got nice room and board, right?
Sure.
Although there's probably rodents. Yeah, I liked watching the strategy unfold. It felt very smart, and she kind of slay. I already said this, the gates need to be further away. Also, I did not say this, but I forgot that Sara reported August. That's just like a fun fact in my brain, is that we just covered season 2, and by the time I was watching season 3, when Simon's like, this is all your fault, if you hadn't reported him, blah blah blah, I literally wrote down, oh yeah, she reported him, fuck.
Yeah. I don't know how you forgot that. There's this cute moment where Simone is drawing a little heart on Wille's hand, and then he jokes that he should go get it tattooed. And there's just a moment where we really see that, like, Wille, even though he doesn't like the position he's put in, there are moments where you can tell it's always in the back of his mind permanently that he is crown prince, because instead of just like joking with it and them laughing it off, he's like, no, I could never get a tattoo. Tattoos aren't proper.
Yeah, even though he hasn't been crown prince for long, he's still trained enough by being a prince that he says he can't get a tattoo. Same reason he can't cut his hair any shorter than it already is. So he's a little brainwashed. Okay, have Simon And do they ever had a real conversation? Like, about their hobbies or their dreams, or, like, do they have anything in common other than both being cute twinks? Because I don't think I've seen one, and, like, I swear we see Simon with his friends, with Rosh and Ayub, and he's, like, a full human having intelligent conversations, and then he sees Wille, and he's just like, "Baby girl."
Yep.
And, like, I know that they love each other, but, like, why?
Yeah. I do think we get a little bit more of that because naturally the plot of this season, they are forced to have tough conversations with one another. But I agree that we don't really know, like, what are their shared interests, because they both did rowing, but that wasn't a shared interest. They don't really, like, hang out in a traditional sense because they can't.
Okay, Wille did rowing because August told him to, and then Simon did rowing for Wille. Wille saw this cute little angel baby sing and was like, "That's the one." And all they
Yeah.
ever do is fight or make
And make
out.
out.
I just don't know. The only thing I can think of is that very first conversation in class when Simon was like, "Why do we call it, like, welfare fraud versus tax evasion?" That conversation,
Yeah.
and Wille, like, liked what he had to say, but, like, Wille can't be political and hasn't been political since, hasn't said anything political since. He's just always like, "I can't." So I don't know what they have in common.
I agree. I still love them together. But yeah, it's not a very, like, fleshed out relationship because there's so many other plot lines and so many other things that we're focusing on and all the drama that you don't get a lot of just them two developing the relationship unless it's like hot sexy time. This whole checklist situation, which we didn't mention in the plot because it's not really important at all, but it's part of like the graduation. The seniors are on like a point hunt, which is where you get like 50 points for doing this task and 100 points for doing this task, and they're competing against each other. And there's like things on there that are like sleep with a freshman, sex a teacher. And I'm like, ugh, gross.
Yeah, they're collecting. It's like all the houses are in competition with each other. And it only comes up because at the end of the episode, the new interim president says, "Y'all
No
gotta
point
stop
hunt."
that."
Mhm.
Yeah, which they're really upset about. There was an interesting line where Vincent dropped to August, "Oh, sleep with a freshman. You can do that, August, since you can just choose between Felice or Sara. Oh, you thought I didn't know? Yeah, two best friends. That's real fuckboy behavior." And I was like, word. But also, just, I don't know, interesting little convo there. And further leads to my confusion about Sara's grade and age. But I think we're going to have to drop that there because I worry for Jess and I's friendship.
Correct. But she's a freshman. Apparently.
Maybe they're using the term loosely as like this is her first year at the school.
Well, also third years are seniors. Just clearly we don't know enough about the Swedish education system also as part.
There is a fun little conversation, sweet conversation between Felice and Simon where she sees him at school with Wille and she asks about Sara and how she's doing. And he's like, honestly, not great, but like, I don't fuck with her no more. And he asks how Felice is doing and she confides in him that she knows everyone thinks she should just get over this, but she doesn't know how to get over her best friend, and she's mad at Sara, but at the same time she misses her. And I think that's a very real sensation, and that a lot of times these days your friends will tell you to just cut someone out of your life because they're toxic or to just get over someone, but feelings aren't like that. We contain multitudes all at once, and you can be mad at someone and also want them there.
Someone can do something really awful to you and you can still choose that forgiveness is the best thing for you. The New York gift was very weird to me because they hand her a tiny little box. She wraps it and it's like a rose quartz face roller. But then they're all like, New York, woo! And I'm like, what about this says New York? Like,
it was very confusing. As someone who lives in New York, had no indication that that's what was coming.
Yeah, me neither. I was like, why rose quartz roller? Like, you would think, I don't know. It was just weird.
Final note from me on this episode is that the hot new headmaster is giving sex education season 3. I understand it was probably a thing about the old actress not coming back for season 3 for whatever reason, scheduling purposes, but they brought in a hot young thing who is talked about by the boys, not in this episode, but in a later episode. And if you haven't seen sex education, they did a similar thing when they brought in a hot new young woman to reform this troubled school. It did not go over well there. We'll see. I don't know. Did she have to be so young and hot? I imagine more of like a Miss Trudgebull coming in.
Yeah, but she does come in and she like lays down the law quick. She's like, this is not happening, and I don't give a shit about your feelings. Like,
and I respect her for that.
mm-hmm.
So, quotes, Jess wrote down a lot for this episode, which was very surprising.
Right as they're arriving to the palace, Linda looks at Simone and is like, tells him to button up his shirt. And he's kind of like, what? Why? She's like, you'll look more reliable, which I just think is like a really good, clearly this situation is a little uncomfortable for them. And she's like, we need to look as like professional and like good people as we can.
I just want to shout out my girl Linda because she is an immigrant and a single mom of 2, one of them being neurodivergent, the other one being homosexual, and they have, I don't know why I say it like it's a slur. Sorry, I'm gay if you don't know, but she's raising kids who are not having it easy in school in a country where she has no family and is dealing with a sex tape and her son dating a prince, and she's like mom of the year up in here.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the portrayal of her character in this season, she does things that I'm like, oh, that is annoying, but also she's doing so much that you can tell at the end of the day she's just trying to be a good mom. And she is trying. She's given 110% every day.
Every day. Okay, next one.
The lawyer guy stepdad to August is like, it can feel good to accept that sometimes, that you're a shitty person, right? Which I really appreciated that he like semi called him out for being.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
August said, I feel like a shitty person. And he said, you are a shitty person.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said that it can feel good to accept it.
Yep. And in this same conversation, August is like, but I love the monarchy. And the stepdad's like, but the important question is, does the monarchy love you?
Mm-hmm. Which felt like some bang-ass foreshadowing. Mm-hmm. And that's when, right after that conversation, they come in and say, added stipulation, we're going to be next in line.
Mm-hmm. These ones we already mentioned, so I'll just do them briefly. August calling out Wille for his past behaviors. He does, with your track record, you'll fuck this up on your own. And not Sara. About Sara, Felice to Simone is like, how do you get over your best friend? Also, this conversation that we mentioned in the summary that Rosh, Ayoub, and Simone have, where Rosh is like, you should really bring up to Wille that like you wished he had told you in advance that he was going to say all this at the Jubilee. And Simone's kind of like, okay, but how would I even approach that conversation? Like, thank you for standing up for me and admitting it was you, but now I'm getting all this shit.
Yeah, it was funny. He's like, no.
Yeah, he's like, there's no good way to approach this conversation, which I don't disagree. I don't think his choice to then go in the comments and respond to hate comments was the right choice to solve anything. But I don't disagree with Simone on like, this would be a very weird thing to mention to Wille because all I wanted him to do for so long was admit it was him in the video, and then he did, and now I don't want that.
I think that their age is showing in a lot of these decisions. Mm-hmm. And then I had one quote. I also had a couple others, but Jess had already written them down. Is when Vincent is goading August about his relationships with Felice and Sara, he asks what Sara was all about and if he loved her. And August is quiet, implied that he might. And Vincent says, you and Wille can sit together on the bus to the slums. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, kind of eats.
Yeah.
Okay, episode 2.
Episode 2.
So, Wille is talking to Simon on the phone in what felt like a conversation that I should not be intruding on. It was giving sexy phone sex. Kind of. It was getting flirty. It was going there. And then someone knocks on Wille's door and says, phone hour is over. And Simon's like, man, And then starts scrolling through the hate comments that he is now becoming obsessed with.
Wille is pulled out of the common room because Farima is here to visit him. And so Vincent uses this opportunity in front of everyone in the common room to blame losing their graduation on Wille's speech. But August is kind of like, guys, we need to take this seriously because if Hillerska actually shuts down, then we're all going to be forced to move to another school for the next few months. And how awful would that be? So he's like, I'm going to start a petition that we can give to the inspectors that are coming to the school to show that like these claims weren't true and how much we really love the school. Farima is telling Wille like the queen's still sick, but they're running all these tests. And he's like, okay, I wish she would call me and talk to me. Like, times have been tough here at school. And then she's like, have you mentioned or have you experienced anything that was mentioned in these articles? And Wille's like, well, nothing that I couldn't handle. And she's like, okay, you need to lay low while we solve what's going on here, because if these things actually are happening, it would look really bad for us to keep you here.
Wille is worried about Hillerska closing. He's confiding in Simon in one of their now actually pretty numerous conversations, private conversations. I will give them that. And he's worried that it's all his fault. And Simon's like, would it really be that bad of a thing if Hillerska closed? And Wille is really only concerned about it because then when does he get to see his boyfriend? Because Simon's grounded and they don't live near each other. And Simon's like, we'll figure it out, baby, don't worry. So then they're also in this discussion talking about how Simon's grounded again. So they can't see each other very often as it is. And apparently going to the same school isn't enough. So Wille asks Simon to rejoin rowing. And he's like, with August, my arch nemesis? Absolutely not. And tells Wille that he should quit rowing and do something that he actually likes.
Mm-hmm.
What Wille likes, I'm still trying to figure out.
Correct. I don't know if he knows. Felice gets called into the principal's office and she lets her know that she's been picked to be interviewed by the school inspectorate and makes a comment that this is like a good time for them to show diversity. And you can tell that Felice is starting to feel a little nervous about this.
Mike reads the news and understands why Sara maybe doesn't want to go to Hillerska and asks her if anything happened to her there. And she's like, no, like that's not, but I can't go back anyway for other reasons. And so he says, okay, well, you gotta do something. So start thinking about it. Maybe you should get a job. And she says, how would I get a job? And he's like, well, there's things you can do to make yourself a better applicant. So first, let's get our driver's license. And this starts a recurring theme of them driving together in the car, which is really wholesome.
It's very wholesome. Wille quits rowing after Simone's suggestion and he decides to join choir. And so after practice, Simone's like, I didn't know you liked to sing. And Wille's like, no, I don't like to sing. I like listening to you sing. And so then they start making out. And that is just that scene. There's not really much more to it.
We get an interesting scene where Niels goes into August's room as August is drafting up this petition that he wants everyone to sign. And we learn that their initiation is that one where all of them were forced to strip down and watch a gay pornography. And Niels says he can't talk to Vincent about it because Vincent says it was a joke. And August says it was a joke, just not a good one. And they say they should focus on the fact that they chose not to do that to their freshmen and carry on that tradition, and that, they can do better. But clearly this has triggered some PTSD in August because he starts to have one of his we wrote panic attack. He he gets very tense and anxious, and he tends to work out a lot in those situations. So he tries to. He's leaving the hall and he gets shut down because it's after 7, curfew has happened, and he has to stay in his room or the common area. And they're like, work out, do some yoga in your room. So instead, he's in the common room and he finds like an old rotary phone, plugs it in, calls Sara. She answers, and he literally looks like he's about to cry.
Mm-hmm.
And then he hangs up.
After this, August goes up to Simone to ask about how Sara's doing. And Simone's like, not well. She's living with her dad that she hates. None of her family is talking to her. She's not going to school. Like, what do you think, asshole? And all of this is your fault. And so Ville's upset at August for bothering Simone with all of this. And so he's like, you need to keep your distance from all of us. And then they get into a full-on fist fight in the library and no one stops them. But then we flash forward and they're in Boris's office. And we learn that now they are forced to do mediation once a week with Boris because that's what the royal court is requiring.
Simon gets some physical mail this time. So we've been seeing lots of hate comments, and now he gets some physical mail about Jesus can save you. You're not supposed to kiss other boys. And he just starts emoting through song. He hits record on his phone and sings a very pointed song about how we can be the revolution. And he posts it online like the dumb boy that he is. And it blows up immediately. He gets positive comments. And then we see Farima texting Wille about the video, and he like calls Simon and is like, you can't do this, like it's a lovely song, but you're just encouraging this and you're gonna get crap for it. And Simon's like, like what does it matter? I'm getting crap anyway, and they're acting like they know me and they don't know me. And Wille drops that ball of what you do reflects me and my family now, which is something you sign up for when you publicly date a royal, but it does suck. And he would like some semblance of privacy, which they cannot have if Simon is posting online.
Linda receives some mail from Hillerska about Sara being kicked out of school. She brings this up to Simone, and Simone's like, I'm not talking to her. Don't put this on me. I've had it with her. And so he calls Mickey, and Sarah's like, I'm not talking to her. And so Mickey kind of has to be like the in-between person on the phone with Linda, communicating what Sara said. And Sara kind of is like, okay, thanks for letting me know, but doesn't really say she'll go back to school or not.
There's a freshman spring hike / camping trip that luckily with the other extracurriculars did not get canceled. We're all very excited, and the girls have this idea to have a rave in the forest during the camping trip. And while they're preparing their string lights and various objects in Felice's room, she opens up about being worried.
This scene is so ridiculous. I just can't. Where are they plugging in all of these string lights? They're like, oh, we're just going to have to bring a generator casually to the forest.
Did they say that? Because that's one of my notes is, what is powering these?
They mentioned, I think Maddie's like, we're going to have to bring a generator. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Okay, but aside from the ridiculousness of the rave, this scene like perfectly encapsulates the show because they're preparing for a fucking rave in a forest. And meanwhile, they're having a very good conversation about how Felice is getting nervous about the interview because she feels like the reputation and what's the word? She's feeling like the school's future depends on her. But at the same time, did some of those things happen? And of course they did. And if they happened, is it so bad that the school is facing like retributions for it now? And the girls are discussing, well, should these people have spoken up if they don't go here anymore? And she starts mentioning how it can be difficult to be the only Black girl in school with curly hair. And the other girls are all silent because they are all too white to respond.
And she specifically mentions like an example to them so they can understand where she's coming from of, you know, at dining hall, the house mistress will always tell her to put her hair up, but if the other girls have their hair down, she won't say anything to them. Then at the field trip, they're to pair up in their tents in groups of 3, except one female will have to share with 2 men because that's just how the numbers worked out. And so Felice volunteers to be with Simone and Wille. And then in the evening, Rosh and Ayoub show up. Did this make sense to you?
No.
Okay, great. So they show up, they're kind of chatting, and then everyone breaks out into their rave. It's a full-on dance party. There's music, there's lights, there's grinding. Villy and Simone are dancing up, all flirty on each other, and so is Rosh and Stella. And then I know. And then they're all chatting after, and Villy asks about everyone's summer plans, and Rosh is like, oh, I have to work. I got this job at a soccer camp. And the girls are like, oh, we're going to New York. And Rosh is like, oh, I've never been to New York. And that kind of creates some awkward tension. And then Villy has the audacity to say that he is also working for the summer because he's doing his Crown Prince in training camp thing. And then they're interrupted because someone takes a photo of who they think is Villy, but it's really one of the girls. And it kind of breaks up the whole thing because they make everyone who's not with Hillerska go back to their own campsites. And then Simone kind of tries to explain to Villy why going to Prince school is not the same thing as being forced to have a summer job to live when he gets everything for free, and that he does not understand how privileged he is, and he's trying to help him see that.
He's trying, but also they're having a full-on defensive fight in the tent before Felice joins. Thankfully, they stop when she arrives. In the morning, Wille gets up early and he has a phone call from Ludwig letting him know that the queen is going out on sick leave. She's dealing with grief and stress and depression, and she's generally unwell. And he can't make any of it public, but he needs to be ready. And that's where the episode ends. Ominous.
Notes? We see a lot of phone calls on this show, and quite frequently they end the phone calls with the Swedish word for kiss. And I didn't look this up, but I hope that's really how they end phone calls in Sweden because that's so cute.
I only noticed it with one conversation.
It happens multiple times.
Is it always with our main couple or is it other people too?
With our main couple, and then also Villy on the phone with the queen. It happens.
I know this is tangential, but I recently saw a TikTok from a British influencer who moved to LA in the last couple months. And he was like, what is with the fact that Americans don't end all of their text messages in an X? Because that's what I do with all of my friends and family in the UK. It's just a cute little way to show it's like a little kiss or a little hug because I love you. And it's just, you write like, I'll see you later, X. Like you just put it there. And why don't Americans do it? It feels so harsh.
I do think it's just a cultural difference. Like, it's just not normal here. And it's probably the same thing with them. It's just normal to say kiss at the end of a phone call. And I just thought it was really sweet. Okay, I have a bone to pick with this rowing or choir because they are making it sound like it is an either or situation. Wille can quit rowing to then join choir, or Simone would have to quit choir to join rowing so they can spend more time together. But this is bullshit because in season 1, Simone is in both choir and rowing.
When did they say that Simone would have to quit choir to join rowing?
I guess they don't say that, but why would Wille have to quit rowing to join choir?
I don't think that he did. I think Simon's saying, I'm not going back to rowing. You should find a new hobby because do you even like it? And you have to spend time with August and he sucks. I think he's just telling him you should quit rowing and find a hobby. And then the hobby that he finds is staring at his boyfriend singing.
Okay. That makes me feel a little bit better, I guess. Oh my God. In gym class, they are being flirty as hell. Wille is
bench pressing.
Doing bench presses. And Simone is spotting them and they're just being cute.
He's being the worst spot ever because he's tickling him instead of actually helping him. He's making it harder.
Okay, but also it looked like that was like 10 pounds on each side. Like it did not look like a heavy weight.
I've seen tweets that are like, I need to know if there was actually any weight on this.
Yeah.
The girls are also flirting. It's a fun gym little montage.
There's this scene where Sara takes a piece of toast. She puts butter on said toast and then puts sliced cucumber. And I'm not saying that that's not a snack that you could eat, but it's not a snack I have ever ate. And it felt interesting.
It felt Nordic to me.
Cucumbers on toast?
Yeah. Well, like butter on crackers, like if you've ever had like knäckebröd, like just like butter and crackers was a common thing, and then I was like, why not throw cucumbers? It's like light. It was weird. Her
Yeah.
dad was kind of looking at her like, we have real food in this house, right?
Yeah, it just felt like jam or like some other spread, but I guess cucumbers.
I also enjoyed Felice playing with the slinky in bed. There's this scene where she's just laying in bed and her friends. Well, okay, so because their phones got taken away except for 1 hour every day, we get a lot of scenes of these kids trying to entertain themselves until that 1 hour comes up, and then they like immediately drop everything. So they just don't know how to live anymore without their phones, which like word, same. And she's laying in on the couch or on her bed, whatever, and she has a rainbow slinky and she's just back and forth, back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked it, and I really wanted her slinky.
I also liked that scene because I thought it was a very accurate representation of like what females do when they hang out to an extent. Because Felice is in bed just freaking playing with the slinky. There's another girl full on knitting in the corner, and then two other girls are braiding each other's hair. And I'm like, I just love the like collection of random activities that are all occurring in this same room.
Every shot of the girls' dorm makes me happy.
Yeah, me too.
So you wrote this question.
Yeah. So my question is Niels the one who spoke up? Because when he goes to August, I should have wrote down the exact quote, but he says something along the lines of, when he's like, I can't bring it up to Vincent because he just thinks that it's a joke. But then he says something along the lines of, I finally had enough and I had to say something.
Yeah, he says something like it was difficult to say something.
Yeah. And so I'm like, is this foreshadowing?
I was also confused about if it was. At first I thought, oh, he's the one that said something now. But then they talk about it like, no, he's the one that said something before that it wasn't okay. So like their third years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was confusing. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Niels is the one that did it though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wouldn't that be great if Niels, the one that's been telling Wille to just like follow the rules and stick with their class, is the one that was like emboldened by his speech to actually speak out?
Up. Yeah. I'm curious to see if anything comes back around to this or if it's just like me reading into the line. But it seemed very pointed, but it also was just kind of thrown in there. So I was like, was this Niels? Like,
yeah, and also we never know with subtitles what we're missing.
Yeah.
I mentioned this in the summary, but just I really appreciated the girls' dorm convo about the issues at the school and how nuanced it was, because there was a lot of back and forth about things genuinely being bad, but should it really have been handled as harshly as it is? And it felt constructive, and like they were kind of playing multiple sides without it being too extreme. And Felice finally bringing up her race. She hasn't done that the entire series, so I appreciated that very much. It then got very awkward and silent, and then Stella finally said that Felice is beautiful, and she's like, yeah, that's not really what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And
lost the plot.
But it felt very real in when like a younger person, especially a younger white person, hasn't been exposed to diverse like issues as much and doesn't know how to respond, and they just like pull out whatever they think maybe could help. Like, I've definitely said dumb shit like that before.
Yes, it felt like very realistic writing because Stella probably would say that. Just trying to comfort a friend in that moment. It's like, yeah, she is beautiful, but this is not the capper to this conversation. We didn't really include this in the plot, but there is this kind of running back and forth between Wille and August, of Wille being like, well, you didn't actually know Eric like I knew him, like we were brothers, and August being like, no, I know Eric more than you do. And this kind of creates a lot of tension between them and leads to some of the fights. But I kind of get it because there is a huge difference between a sibling relationship and a friendship. Like, there are things that you say and do and ways you act around a sibling that are different than how you would act around your friends, but there also are things that you would do with your friends that you wouldn't in a sibling relationship.
Absolutely. And I know that will come to a head more in the later episodes.
Yes.
But it is a very good contrast that they brought about there. It was thoughtful. It's thoughtful.
Yes. Freaking Simone receiving that Christian anti-LG. I guess I don't know that it was Christian.
It was Christian. I got that it
Okay.
was Christian more than the anti-LGBT, because at first it was just like, come to our church.
Oh,
God
no.
will save you. And then he opened it and it was like, this Bible verse says you shouldn't kiss other men.
Yes. It's just so fucked. Like, that's worse than the hate comments. Like, the hate comments he can ignore, but don't fucking send mail to someone's house.
Well, yeah, to me, the pamphlet is not too bad. It's not commenting on his character. It's just, I think it's easier to battle just straight up homophobia than it is something that feels more personal. But the fact that they have his address is sketchy as hell.
Yeah.
And it is shown maybe in the next episode that he kind of was doxxed. So, Simon's songs are Demi Lovato level subtle.
Yeah.
If you've never listened to a Demi Lovato song, you don't know what I'm talking about. She has many albums that are just explicitly what they are about. Like she does not know how to write a metaphor, and she's never needed to in her life, and that's fine. Some people are very like, a lot of songwriters, there's interpretation, there's time that goes into like, ooh, what are the hints, what are they writing about? That is not Miss Demi Lovato, and that is also not our little Simon, because he writes these songs that are just so explicitly what he's going through in the show, and I'm like, baby, you're laying it out there for everyone.
Yeah. And it's like he wrote it in the moment and then posted it. I'm like, maybe let it marinate in your brain for a little bit before you decide to just freaking make this shit public.
That's what I'm saying. So we've got the Revolution song, but previously we had the school song, and it's like, this is about Wille. This is so clearly about Wille, and you're writing it as a song to sing in front of the entire school and the royal family?
Yeah.
Like, maybe just rethink. I know we're the sensitive artist type, and like, your work is good, but like, baby. I thought it was really interesting or funny, this sort of like throw in when Mike's telling Sara to get a job. He's like, why don't you work with horses? And she's like, I don't think I want to work with horses because I've realized that the people who buy and sell horses don't care about them, and they can be abusive, and the horses can't do anything about it. And it's just this like very innocent, naive disillusionment that she never thought of that before. Or yeah, of course horses can't do anything if they're in abusive situations. They're horses.
I felt like it felt accurate because I personally, until I went to a school where a huge part of the college I went to was the Arabian horse breeding program, I did not realize how much money and wealth was in horses. Like, I knew like horse betting was a thing, but it really is like a rich people's sport. And a lot of it is like who can have the best horse to show off. And I didn't know that that was a thing until I was more directly close to it. So I could see how Sara, with just like her love and passion for horses, like being that directly exposed to like how just like convoluted the whole thing is, because it is a very expensive sport. I don't know. I kind of get it.
Yeah, I think it also felt naive to me because it was that mentality of, I'm not going to be involved in something that I love more than anything else in the world just because a number of people involved in it absolutely suck.
Yeah. Well,
Like, that's traumatic.
I appreciated that Mickey was like, well, maybe you can do something with abused horses.
I know. I was like, go off.
Yeah, it was cute. I'm struggling this season with Simone. We've talked about how like he's the one we can relate to because he's more normal and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, dude, you made the decision in season 2. You said, I don't care if I have to wait. I want to be with you. I love you. And it's like, now that Wille made them public and everything, he wants everything to go back the way it was before. And he wants to be able to post whatever he wants on social media and do what he wants and act the way he wants. And it's like, you're dating a prince. That's just not how it works.
Yeah, I have a note further on our next episode, like on episode 3 about this. Listen to our Young Royals season 2, episode 2 coverage, because I called this shit in our season 3 predictions that this was going to be the main source of conflict
Yeah.
because, I mean, granted, he's like 15, 16, like,
Yeah.
and he probably didn't really think about what it meant to be out with his boyfriend, although he should have, because he saw how bad the tabloids and stuff were when they were closeted after
Yep.
the tape came out. I agree. He is also being very naive about his situation, and the whole posting online and commenting and stuff, it's very immature. What do we think about Stella and Rosh?
Kind of into it, low key.
Same. And I couldn't tell if Stella was genuinely kind of into Rosh or if she was just like into Rosh to make Frederica jealous, but Frederica got jealous off of that, which was good.
Yeah, Frederica got jealous, but then also when Frederica like mentioned something about Rosh but didn't know her name, Stella was like, her name's Rosh. You know, like, I don't know. She seems like she cared a little bit. She's really nice, I think is what she says. Low key into it. I feel like that's a vibe. I don't know if the show's going to explore it more because we only have a few more episodes, but I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. And I think part of what I like about it is that Stella and Frederica are this classic femme couple. Well, not classic, but they're both very femme. And then having Stella show interest in Rosh, who is not femme, was like, oh, yes, we can be into multiple types. And just like vibe. Yeah. I don't understand the forest rave. You don't understand the forest rave. I don't know that we have much more to say on that because it made no sense.
Yep.
It made as much sense as Rosh and Ayub randomly showing up in the forest.
Correct.
But I did like the mixed friend group dynamic. It was really, really interesting, that scene talking about summer jobs. For the first time, we see Wille and Simon. We see Felice and her friends. And we see Rosh and Ayub all together.
Mm-hmm.
All of our friend groups colliding. It was
it's a little awkward. Yeah.
It was uncomfortable. It was a little awkward. But I did like it.
Yeah.
Because it is very real, like your friends meeting your friends. But it was like your friends meeting your friends' friends. Anyway, also, I did think that it was unnecessarily awkward because there were Frederica was egging on the awkwardness.
Yeah, I definitely think the awkwardness was egged on and they were trying to play up the like class dynamic like more than it already was just there naturally. But I did appreciate that they included those kind of harder conversations where you really see a difference in like Rosh being like, yes, I have a job and I'm teaching a soccer camp. And the girls being like, we're going to New York. One of our biggest interests is traveling. Like
them. Okay. It was can you imagine never having been to America?
Yeah.
You live in Sweden.
Yeah. It's far.
Quotes. When August is saying that they need to sign their petition to help with the inspection, he says, do you want to go to school with socialists and new money white trash?
Yep.
Really shows the colors of the school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's like they're even judging other rich people. During their fight, Wille goes, August, my family owns you. And I just like when Wille kind of like slaps those hard-hitting things in August's face. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and August is like, you're not king yet. And but like, even if he's not, his family like owns the whole country, baby.
Yeah.
The whole country. There's a line when they're all exasperated about this report that came out where Vincent says, is there anyone here who's been seriously bullied? As if like there's no way that anyone's actually been bullied, which I just thought was really rich coming from him because we know that he was in the class that was bullied and he also is a bully now.
And you could see everyone's face is like, yes, 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 yes.
Did you see Henry like raise his hand?
Oh no. Oh, Henry, sweet little Henry.
While they are camping, all the kids are fighting because they're like, what, the gays get to sleep together, but the straights don't? And what if we all do it random and blah, blah, blah? And then this leads up to your...
Yeah, and then maybe it was Frederica. One of them mentions.
This is about Maddie?
Maddie. Yes, it is Maddie.
Because it's in English.
Mm-hmm. She goes, what about non-binary ones? Which I appreciated.
Yeah. Shout out to the non-binaries that aren't cast in this show.
Yep.
And then I already said it. I didn't know you like singing. I don't like singing. I like listening to you sing. Get this boy a hobby.
Oh, but also they're so cute. Makes me want to throw up.
Episode 3?
Episode 3.
Wille is talking to his mom on the phone, and she at first is like, the doctors are exaggerating, and then proceeds to have a very unwell-sounding conversation with him. Like, she's having a meltdown on the phone, crying about how, what would happen if she has to step down, and she doesn't know she can handle things right now, and like, Wille's like, I will handle it. Everything will be okay. You'll get better. I'll take care of things. Linda is also trying to drug test Simon again, and he's pissed because where's the trust, Mom?
Wille is trying to tell Simone what happened with his mom on the phone earlier, but he's distracted by the hate comments, and Wille's really, really upset that he's not listening to him and instead just scrolling the comments. And he's like, as long as you are with me, it is always going to be this way. There will always be hate. Like, there's no escaping it. And so then Simone kind of like closes his phone and he's like, things will get better with your mom. Like, burnout is a very common thing. And Wille's like, yeah, but she's the queen. Like, she can't really have burnout. Like, that's not a thing that she's allowed to experience. And then Wille mentions like, all I want to do is be with you. And then they are interrupted by the paparazzi taking photos of them.
Wille misses the mediation appointment with Boris because he's off singing in choir practice, I think. So Boris is like, August, let's take this hour to talk about things that you feel like you can't talk about in front of Wille. And he says, we're going to need more than an hour. And talks about how he just feels like he can't say anything in front of Wille because Wille's decided that he's evil. And Boris says, others don't owe us forgiveness, but you have to move on regardless. And sometimes the best thing you can do is to forgive yourself. And you can see the wheels turning in August's little brain.
August approaches Wille about the petition because Vincent is really pushing him to get Wille to sign it, because if the Crown Prince signs it, then they're gonna have to listen to the petition.
Wille and Simon.
And Wille accuses him of being involved because he's like, why else would you be trying to shut down this inspection so hard? And then he's like, I can't sign it. Like, I'm not allowed to take a stand.
Simon gets home and Linda's like, baby, I made you your favorite meal. Please, let's talk. And he says he's not hungry. So she goes to find him in his room where he's just sulking, and she apologizes for not trusting him. She's got a lot on her plate. It's bad enough with Sara not in school. And he opens up about feeling depressed and talking about how he doesn't want to be here anymore, whether it's Hillerska or Bierstadt or just here. And he can't seem to do anything right, and that no one likes him. And if they do like him, it's only because he's with Wille.
It's inspection day, and if everything goes well, they kind of hint that maybe they'll lift some of the restrictions. Simone tells Wille he's not grounded anymore. He talked to his mom, and she agreed to not ground him for the rest of the semester. And they're making eyes at each other in the library, and Wille kind of leads Simone into the choir room, and they start making out and then are interrupted by the inspection, which then I like that the new president is like, all right, Wille and Simone, get back to practicing. But she clearly is hinting that they were not practicing, and everyone knows it. Everyone is making awkward small talk at lunch while the inspectors are in the room. But the moment that they leave, they all get back to sitting in class order. And they're hoping that they're able to celebrate Walpurgis, which is what we mentioned is the holiday that's the last day of spring. No. Yes.
No. Well, it's April 30th. It's to usher in spring.
Okay, that makes more sense, to usher in spring. If the inspection goes well, because right now, all holiday celebrations, anything like that is off the table. And then they're like, this is perfect too, because we get the day after May 1st as a holiday. And Simone is like, that's Workers' Day. The point of the day is not to party the night before because you have a day off. You are supposed to demonstrate there is a point to this day.
Which, buzzkill, okay. Felice asks her dad, because he comes for the interview that she's going to give to the inspectorates. She asks him about his time at Hillerska, which I think is interesting because I didn't realize how multi-generationally Swedish they were. And he said that he was the only Black student at Hillerska at the time, and people used the N-word or comparable slurs and othered him, and he tried to do his own thing at first, but quickly had to assimilate and didn't say anything because the teachers were the same. And Felice then gets up, goes into her interview, and says, I got this, Dad. You wait outside.
As the inspectors are leaving, they've finished everything. August gives them the petition, which Vanessa mentions was a nice touch. And they get permission to celebrate Walpurgis, just no alcohol.
August is feeling emboldened, so he puts on his best clothes. He changes multiple times. He puts on his cologne, and he takes the socialist bus to Mikke's house and arrives shortly before Mikke and Sara arrive from a driving lesson. And he tells Sara he's sorry and he understands why she was angry, or he was angry with her for going to the police, but he understands now why she did it and that he let her down, and he misses her and their relationship. But more than anything, like, she shouldn't be ruining her life because of him and what he did, and she should come back to school. And she says goodbye, August, and tells Mikke what that conversation essentially was about, but says that she can't because she messed up too bad to go back.
Yeah, everything went wrong.
And she says, like, she did something too big to forgive or something like that. And Mikke opens up to Sara and says that, he struggled a lot raising her and Simon and had a lot of anxiety about how he was failing them as a parent whenever he would go then drink, and then he would spiral into drinking more because of the guilt and the anxiety. And she asks if that's going to be her someday, and he says no, just because we share diagnoses does not mean that we are the same. And he says that he thinks they just feel more than others, and that she should go back to school because they can't let shame and guilt control their lives.
Wille mentions that he hated singing in front of everyone because they had a choir performance at the little Walpurgis day. And he's like, I don't understand how you do this with such ease. And Simone's like, I'm not actually able to be relaxed while singing anymore. And then he suggests that they sneak away since the bus does not leave for a while. So they're making out in the dining hall, and then they're making out in the hallway, and then they're taking off each other's clothes in the hallway. And then they hook up, and we see them both say I love you to each other.
Mikke drops, intermixed with this, Mikke drops Sara off.
I grouped them separately, but the scenes cut in and out of one another.
Yes. Mikke drops Sara off at Hillerska during the Walpurgis celebration and promises to come get her if she calls. Everyone is giving her dagger eyes, except August, who waves at her, excited to see her. Wille and Simon walk off hand in hand to go literally have sex. Yeah. And she calls her dad immediately, and it goes straight to voicemail. And I'm like, have you even gotten home yet?
Yeah.
But the teacher approaches her to talk to her. Sara gets home. Mikke's passed out on the couch. Immediately, she's panicked. She's looking for alcohol or drugs or whatever. He wakes up, apologizes that he just fell asleep. He's not drunk. His phone was on silent. And she says it was shitty, but she survived, and she's going back to school on Monday.
Simone is opening up to Wille about how he struggles with his relationship with Sara, because how can two people have the same upbringing, be so close, raised in the same way, but be completely different people? And Wille's like, do you think you'll ever be able to forgive her for what she did? And Simone's like, I'm not sure. It has really made me, I've done so much for her. I've cared for her whole life. I've done so much for her. And it makes me really struggle with trusting anyone. And Wille's like, well, you can trust me.
Now it's Workers' Day, and we get flashes of Simon, Rosh, and Ayub at a demonstration while the kids are at school having fun. And they're selling raffle tickets, Rosh and Ayub and Simon. And Simon's looking very uncomfortable. He's got his hood up. He's trying to hide because people are looking at him. They're whispering. He's thinking they know who I am. Crap. But a mom and her son come up, and they ask to buy 2 tickets. And then they're like, just so you know, you're kind of an icon in our house. Yeah. And the mom is white, but the son is not. And so they ask for a photo because he really likes Simon, and they get a cute little photo, and she immediately posts it to Instagram and tags Simon, and he just like feels so happy that he reposts it, which then when Wille finally gets his phone back, he has 7 missed calls from his secretary and sees the photo, and at first he is like, "Oh, cute photo, look at that kid looking at Simon," and then he sees in the background there's banners about like down with the upper class, and it leads to another tense phone call where he calls Simon and is like, "Bro, this reflects on me. Like, you can't be doing this." But Simon doesn't hear him because he's on his way home and the cops are outside and someone threw a rock in his family's apartment. And that's the end of episode 3 and the end of our summaries.
Getting into episode 3 notes. I like Boris. That's all. I like him. He's a little
I like
cutie.
him too.
Glad we get more of Boris in season 3, truly. We didn't get enough in the first 2 seasons.
He was really underutilized.
I still feel he's underutilized. Every single fucking student at that school should be seeing Boris for real. A callback to a scene we mentioned previously, or I guess it was probably in this episode, where Felice is talking about the hair thing, how the headmistress always asks her to pull back her hair, but not the others. When the school inspection is happening, the headmistress comes in and asks Felice, she's like, "Felice, your hair?" And Frederica also has her hair down and immediately pulls her hair back too, which I just really appreciated. It showed that she heard Felice in that moment.
I agree. I liked that it showed that her friends are listening and learning.
I just love Billy and Simone. They're so damn cute.
Okay. Sure, they are very, very cute. They are very cute. They are very cute. So I sound very assured, right? I want to talk about a lot of things about them. Simon has his big gay meltdown. Sorry, it's just a big meltdown. He just happens to be gay. And then with his mom, where he's like, "I don't think I want to be here anymore." And then he shows up at school and just immediately is baby girl with Wille again. And is like, "My mom didn't ground me. I want to see you all the time." Like, stop compartmentalizing. Tell your boyfriend how you're feeling. Like, because that was a big confession.
Yeah.
Also, there's a point where Wille tells Simon by responding to the comments and by posting stuff, he's asking for hate, which I thought was interesting. To me, this is like clearly an issue of communication and like a difference in media training versus limelight like experience, because Wille, even in that conversation you talked about when they're walking up to the school and he's like, "I'm trying to talk to you about my mom, stop looking at those comments and these are always going to be there." He also says like they've always been there, which I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but it felt like to me that implication of like he's always been scrutinized because of the monarchy. You know, he was in the news before he went to Hillerska. That's why they sent him there. And it almost looked like that's what dawned on Simon because he's so critical of the monarchy. So clearly Wille is like very trained like from a young age, and he's not giving that to Simon, and Simon's not asking for it. He's kind of just telling him don't do this, not like giving him any sort of training. No one's giving Simon any sort of training. They're just telling him don't do this. I don't like it. Communicate.
Yeah. I think it's hard too because Simone just doesn't want anything to change. Like we see in season 1 that he's someone who posts on stories. He shares his life on social media. He's like a normal teenager in that way. And you're right, no one like ramped him up for like now with this public statement, like how you face outwardly to others needs to completely change. And you know, Farima tells Wille, talk to Simone, but she also doesn't give him clear guidelines on what exactly she means when she says that.
Yeah, and she doesn't talk to Simone herself. Also, like in that vein of Simone just is not thinking well about the situation, taking the pic with people, reckless. But I get it. Cute little kid. Leaving the tag on the post, reckless. I thought he was going to untag himself. Then he reposts it. That's a problem.
Yeah.
It's one thing for it to just be out there for people to find if they're really that obsessed. It's another thing for you to post it yourself.
Yep. Especially after you've had multiple conversations with Wille about laying low. There's no way that he thinks that this is laying low.
The conflict resolution, though, I really need to see this. I really need to see the conflict resolution between our little boys because they fight every other scene, and then they're like really good every other scene, but there's never any like, I'm sorry that I spoke to you that way. Or sometimes they come to each other as like, I see your side of things, I'm just trying to say this. But I feel like the camping scene in episode 2, they had a big fight in that tent where he's like, you don't realize how privileged you are. And then after that, they're just like, I want to be with you all the time. And I don't really, it feels a little disconnected sometimes.
Yeah. I also feel like it does feel very teenage relationship in that way, where there's like such a physical connection and a clear attraction between the two of them. And I do believe that they truly do care and love each other, but their communication and their knowing of who like they are as humans is not there yet because they're teenagers. And so there's that disconnect on how they're actually able to like resolve conflict, come to a conclusion together. Like none of that is there because I just don't think they have those skills yet.
I agree. I think the part that's disconnect for me is that teenagers usually the next day, you're petty. You're like, I'm still mad at you.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't really get that either. They just kind of ignore it.
Sara and Mickey have a lot of really cute scenes in this season. I actually really like that we get to see a relationship between the two of them. It is not something I expected. It was not on my bingo card for season 3, but I'm happy it's there. On one of their driving lessons, Mickey's like, I think you're ready for the next step. And Sara's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, singing while driving. And he like bumps up the music and they're singing together. And I just thought the song choice and the lyrics were so pointed because they're like, I can change. I'm not the same.
I want you back. It was so pointed about both their relationship and also Sara and August's relationship, which we're also seeing like flashes of August during this scene. It was just very, very, it was one of those, it was Wille in season 2 having his dramatic walk through Hillerska with the song blasting, this is for the lonely girls that cry and bullshit level of pointed.
Yeah, it really is. How the fuck does August know where Mickey lives? Like, I understand him potentially knowing like where their house in Bjarstad is, which I guess Mickey probably lives there too. But like, how does he know? Like, Sara didn't have a relationship with him before. Like, there's no way she shared where he lived. Like, that was weird to me.
For anyone who's only listening, I've had my hand raised since Jess started this question. The drugs.
Oh, the drugs make sense. I wasn't thinking about the drugs. Yep, you're right.
Yeah, because he's still popping those pills, I think. So I think he would have the label.
During Valpurgis, they're all getting ready. All the freshmen are preparing, and there's a bunch of like baking montage scenes a la a Hallmark movie. And they're like rolling out dough and spreading things onto it, and they're like splashing flour on each other. And so random. Why is this included? Not sure. It's so cute.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
It's so cutie pie. I wrote in my actual notes on my phone or laptop, whatever. I wrote, he's so cutie pie. Like so many scenes, mostly actually about August, sometimes about Simon and Wille, but just like people being so cutie pie. And like this scene was very, very cutie.
Yeah.
It was Wille and Simon flirting, and it was Frederica and Stella flirting, and Felice was also there.
Yeah. Yes.
Forever the fifth wheel.
Also, I moved this from the plot into the notes. I don't really have a lot of things to say, but as part of Valpurgis, they do this like capping ceremony for the seniors getting ready to graduate. And they like put on these weird sailor ass looking hats and they like lift them up and like shake them in the air and then put them on their heads. And then they like light a giant thing on fire.
So that's what Valpurgis is, because I didn't read much, but I briefly looked it up, that it's a ceremony to usher in spring, and people light bonfires all over the country for it. So the fire makes sense. I think the caps are just intertwined at Hillerska because they're going to graduate soon. They're ugly ass caps. I don't know why they look like that. Weird.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. What is this?
You want to talk about it?
You wrote it.
I just wrote the sex scene.
No, the Swedish cops wearing stupid hats.
Oh!
Like, what hats are you talking about? I didn't notice stupid hats, but you did.
When they were at Simon's apartment, they had old-timey hats, and I thought it looked stupid and silly, and like they would fall off their heads.
Here's the thing, they probably do wear those hats.
I know, they probably do. Okay, anyway, but I don't care about the silly hats. Let's talk about the sex scene. That was in the trailer a little bit. People were like, in the hallway, people were trying to investigate what
Yes.
could have possibly happened. And let me tell you, they are not just making out in the hallway, they are ferociously making out, shirts off in the hallway. For a couple that wants privacy, you're really not asking for it when you're making out like that and shirts off. And then we get these like, it's like intermixed between the hallway and Wille's bedroom, and like it's clear that they went all the way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, how did you feel about it?
I don't know. I thought it was fine. I thought the hallway of it all was like, again, we knew it was coming, but I'm like, guys, we had issues with the curtain. We had issues with the sex tape. Why do we keep doing shit in public? Like, let's learn from our mistakes. But no, we don't. Instead, we take off each other's clothes in a public place because that's the right thing to do, I guess. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I feel like it makes sense they had to eventually include a sex scene. But I agree with you that, like, with all the other stuff going on, like, could have they used this time to maybe, you know, had a more intimate conversation between the two of them. But, like, they are giving the fans what they wanted.
Yeah, I agree. The hallway, because it was expected and it's a small hallway and they knew everyone was out, I'm not too mad about. Like, I'm a little mad. I'm more mad about the dining hall that I didn't know was coming, and that felt it felt like too much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But in general, I thought that the scene was well done. It was tasteful because they're both minors. The actors are not, but the characters are. That it was kind of like intermixed. It's clear enough what's happening without being too intimate or graphic. As far as sex scenes go, it felt pretty well done.
Yeah, I agree. I think the intimacy coordinator deserves an award. I was going to say a raise, but actually I feel like an award probably would do better.
An award with a bonus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I do like all of the behind the scenes where you see Edwin and Omar in Wille's bedroom set on their last day, and they're like, this is where all of the hot stuff happened.
Yeah. We only had one quote for this episode, which is, but I'd rather have a dad with bad spells than no dad at all, which was August talking to Sara because he was like, your dad seemed nice. And she's like, yeah, he's having a good spell. It kind of shows that maybe that's something they could connect on that we haven't seen them talk about before. We know very little about August's dad.
Other than the fact that he unalived himself.
Yes.
Final thoughts. I've already said it. This is peak Wille haircut.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I really want to emphasize how impressed I am with the writing and the editing on this final season. I was going to put these notes throughout, but I just felt like it all went together. Like, they're doing such a good job. And yes, sometimes it feels like they're giving fans what they want, but it also feels very intentional. I feel like they're picking up threads that were in the first 2 seasons that we didn't think were going to go anywhere. And that's really pleasing to me. The editing, just quickly, I'm enjoying it because it was like the comment about the headmaster made to Felice about diversity, and then shot to her, like cut to her boxing in gym looking pissed off. There's August and Wille fighting, and then it cuts to Wille looking very unamused in Boris's office. There's the shots of the demonstrations and a shot and the school at the same time intermixed, and the school is like a floating tennis court on the lake, like so over the top. But in terms of the writing, like a lot of mental health issues are genetic, and Wille has always had anxiety, and now seeing it come out in the queen and having her this depiction of grief and mental breakdown is quite interesting, and I'm glad that it came to something that it wasn't just Wille, you know?
Mm-hmm. I think the depiction of grief is really, really beautiful because you don't see it happen immediately, which is actually very common with grief. So, right, like this happened season 1 and we get a whole season where the queen is seemingly okay. And the fact that now it comes on, like it just feels very accurate to how grief can manifest and how it like literally can make you to the point where they're running a bunch of medical tests, but nothing is wrong because it all is just happening because of grief. And I thought it was really, really well done.
I could have used a little bit of a precursor with her. Like I could have used a little bit of a crack in season 2 because this was so much all at once. But it was still I really appreciate it. I really appreciated the representation of ADHD, that the conversation that Mickey has with Sara about the shame and the guilt and the anxiety, because as I mentioned at the start of this episode, I've been getting help with my ADHD, and a huge, huge part of it has been anxiety around the things that I'm not doing correctly. And I didn't realize that was from my ADHD. I thought I had to deal with my anxiety, but just since being medicated, that anxiety has largely lifted. And I felt like that was really well done. And it's also like something like 50% of people with ADHD are speculated to have a parent that has it. And then also, like I said, all these threads, things that we were picking up from the beginning that we were like, this is not okay. Like the initiation scene. When we watched that, we were like, this is the most mental thing we've ever seen. Like, this is not okay. I never expected it to be a plot point. Did you?
No. Not at all. And when you wrote this down and I read it earlier, I was like, oh, this is so true. Because it is everything that we are like, this is a problem. They are addressing it as a problem. And it is really nice. Even to the extent of like, the subtle bullying we've seen, even non-subtle, and them calling that out. Like, it's really great to see these conversations come around.
Yeah, and I've always felt like Felice and Simon are great, but having this diversity in this Swedish show and not addressing it felt a little strange. And now we're getting Felice having her storyline around it. We're getting some of the comments Simon is getting are racially targeted about being a Latin lover. And August's eating disorder is also becoming more and more apparent. It's not just that he's working out all the time and cutting carbs. He's been working out since season 1, and then he was cutting carbs in season 2, and now it's pretty clear, and I know it will become even more clear. And so really, it feels like it's all coming to a head at once, which is kind of exciting, kind of scary, but I love that they're wrapping all of that up.
Yeah. And with them wrapping all of it up, the finale better pack as much as in season 2's final episode, because Amanda has not watched episodes 4 and 5 yet. I have, and we'll talk about it in our next episode along with the finale. But the finale, at the time that we're recording this, the finale has not been released yet. How they left episode 5 is not okay. They left a lot of loose ends. So I'm like, they better use every second of that last episode.
Yeah, because if you're going to pick up all those threads, you better put them in place.
Yes. And as you said, they're starting to close the loop on some things, but they're not fully closed yet. So we have a lot of things they need to do in one episode.
Absolutely.
And with that, up next is Young Royals season 3 episodes 4 through 6. We are excited about it. As always, please rate and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps us, as well as follow us on all our social medias, 90s Babies Nostalgia on Instagram and YouTube. Spell out the word 90s. Also, give us like a subscribe on YouTube. Like our content if you're watching it over there. We would really appreciate that. And also you can find us on TikTok, but use the numbers there. And with that, I think we will see you in the next one.
Thanks for listening. Stay gay. Bye.
Babies, nostalgia.